Hi everyone and welcome to yet another set of words. Our first word for today is fortuitous. Now, fortuitous means something that is not planned or happening by chance, but to your advantage, right? So, fortuitous means some happening which is by chance. Also, it is for your advantage. Like somehow it ended up having a profit for you. Okay. For example, lotteries. Lotteries, if you won a lottery, that means the event was fortuitous, right? The timing of the meeting is certainly fortuitous. That means the timing of the meeting was not planned, but whatever the timing is, it suits me. So it happened by chance, but it's to my advantage. The collapse of its rivals was a fortuitous opportunity for them. That means their rivals, they collapsed. Maybe the rival business was not working well, and this was a by chance opportunity, but this was an advantage for them. They had fortuitously been out of the house when the fire started. So these people had a fire in their house, but the fire started when these people were not there. So that is so by chance, but that is also to their advantage, right? So fortuitous means something that is happening by chance and to your advantage, right? So that is fortuitous. Fractious. Fractious means someone who's easily upset or annoyed and often complains. Someone who's difficult to control, right? Children often get fractious when they are tired. I also get fractious when I'm tired, right? I'm annoyed, I'm irritated, I complain a lot, I crib a lot, right? So someone who gets easily upset or annoyed is fractious, or someone who's often complaining is fractious, or someone who is difficult to control is fractious. This kid right here looks really fractious. Children often get fractious when they are tired. They fight and squabble like fractious children. That means they fight and they squabble, like they have these banters, they shout at each other, just like, irritated kids do, annoyed kids do. King Malcolm struggled to unite his fractious kingdom. His fractious kingdom is difficult to control kingdom, right? So King Malcolm had struggled to unite his fractious kingdom before uh, a certain era, right? So fractious, someone who is easily upset or annoyed, often complaining and difficult to control is fractious. Okay. Our next word, fringe, right? Fringe, most girls must be knowing about this. Fringe, not part of the mainstream, also type of a hairstyle. You know, these fringes that girls keep, these fringes, right? So these are called fringes. Also, if something is not part of the mainstream, we call that thing as a fringe. There is some industry on the fringes of the city. Fringes of the city and the borders of the city mainly, but not in the main city, right? So not in the main area of the city. There are some industries which are at the border of the city or a part of the city which is not mainstream, not mainland. These activities are very much on the fringe of their global operation, right? That means they are unconventional. Now, fringe also means unconventional things which are not, usually seen, which are not followed by everyone. So these activities are very much, or they are almost like unconventional for a global operation, right? Climate change is no longer a fringe issue. Climate change is no longer an unconventional issue. It is something that everyone's talking about, everyone knows about, right? So yeah, fringe, not part of the mainstream, unconventional, also type of a hairstyle. Okay. Our next word, frivolous. Frivolous means someone who behaves in a silly way and not taking anything seriously. You know, some people, some boys, some girls, they're like, I'm cool, I'm chill, I have no care in the world, right? So they're behaving in a silly way in their life. They are not taking anything seriously, YOLO, right? So that is called a frivolous behavior. He is seen as a frivolous young man. That means his behavior is, jolly but carefree. I feel like doing something completely frivolous today. Completely frivolous, completely silly, completely not serious, right? The proposal would impose penalties against lawyers who file frivolous claims. Frivolous claims, lawyers who file silly claims, like they're not even serious, claims over anything. Right? So, frivolous is behaving in a silly way and not taking anything seriously. That is a frivolous behavior. Right? Just like this emoji face here, right? That is a frivolous behavior. Okay, let's look at our next word, frugality. Frugality means the quality of being careful when using money or food. There is a person who would be, saving money not because they are being careful about it, but because they don't like spending it. Such a person is a miser. Okay. Then a frugal is a person who spends money, but he's careful when using money, okay, or food. Right? They are just not using money like that, like a miser. They're also not being too extravagant with the expenditure. They're frugal. Frugal means they are wise with the money. They are careful when they're spending money or when they are buying food or eating food, right? She was known for her simplicity and frugality. That means she was careful when using money or food. They taught that frugality must be observed in food and clothing. The food you eat and the clothes you wear. These two things should be done with frugality, right? That means you should be careful while spending money on food and clothing. Her grandmother had experienced the frugality of the warriors. Her grandmother had experienced the quality of being careful of using money or food during the warriors, because during warriors, people were not having much money, they were not getting enough food, so they had to be frugal, they had to be careful in utilizing the money or food, right? So, frugality, quality of being careful when using money or food. All right. Next is galvanize. Galvanize means to cause someone to suddenly take an action by exciting them. So let's look at this example. Western charities were galvanized by TV pictures of starving people. Galvanized, they were provoked to, take action. So to cause someone to suddenly take action, right, is to galvanize them. You excite someone so that they take an action towards something, right? So Western charities were galvanized by TV pictures of starving people. When they saw starving people on TV, then the Western charities were, pushed to take action. Can Earth Hour galvanize the global warming fight? Doing the Earth Hour, would it, would it make the people excited to fight global warming? How can we galvanize the students into studying hard? How can we excite students? How can we make the students to take action in order to study hard? Right. So galvanize is to excite someone, to cause someone to suddenly take an action, right? To make them do something, to make them take the first step. That is galvanize. All right. Next is gawky, right? So gawky is a tall and awkward person. You can say clumsy or someone who's not graceful, right? It's like this guy here, he's picking his nose, right? So he's very gawky. If someone is tall and awkward, they fall most of the time. They're fumbling. They are not able to, not make things fall. Then such people are called as gawky. He has also been described as gawky. That means he's clumsy, not graceful. Does she look posh or gawky? Does she look like rich and highly maintained, and does she look like sophisticated, or is she awkward, clumsy, and not graceful? She wishes to overcome her unpopularity at school since she views herself as gawky and uncool. So there is this girl who thinks that she is clumsy and she's not graceful. Right? So cocky is an adjective meaning someone who is tall, awkward, or clumsy and not graceful. Right? Okay. Our next word, germane. Now, germane means having relevance to a given matter or being pertinent to something or being significant, right? So, if something has a connection, has a relevance to the matter, that means the thing is germane to that discussion, right? For example, her remarks could not have been more germane to the discussion. Her remarks could not be more pertinent to the discussion, more relevant to the discussion. So you can say germane means relevant, right? Many issues germane to the history of religion are considered. So many issues which are relating or which are pertaining to history of religion, they were considered. He wanted to find anyone with information germane to the case. He wanted to find someone who had information pertinent to the case, significant for that case, right? So that is germane, having relevance to a given matter, or pertinent to a matter or significant for a matter. That is called germane, right? Our next word is gloom, right? It was a Pokemon also. Gloom is a feeling of great unhappiness and loss of hope. If you've lost hope, you're feeling really sad, unhappy, then you are in a, you're full of gloom, right? So you can say gloom is sad, right? Being sad is gloom. Bergman's films are often full of gloom and despair, right? It's full of sadness and despair. There is widespread gloom and doom about the company's future. There is some sad news going around about the company's future and about company's doom, that the downfall of the company, right? So doom is downfall, gloom is sadness, right? Unhappiness, loss of hope about the company. There is a general gloom about the farming industry. There's a general loss of hope about farming industry. People don't think farming industry would flourish. So there is a general gloom about that industry. Right? So gloom is a feeling of great unhappiness and loss of hope. Hackneyed. Hackneyed means used or said so often that it seems meaningless, ordinary, or not sincere. If you keep saying something so many times that it just loses its meaning, that means the thing has been hacked, right? The plot of the film is just a hackneyed boy meets girl scenario, a scenario which you see in almost every movie. So, how we say something is a cliche, that is hackneyed, right? Politicians tend to repeat the same hackneyed expressions. Same expressions that you've seen over time, again, again, and again, right? So those are some hackneyed expressions. What matters is that his music seldom sounds hackneyed. That means his music never sounds ordinary, never sounds the same, right? Okay, guys. So hackneyed, used or said so often that it seems meaningless, ordinary, or not sincere. Now let's revise. Hackneyed, something that has been repeated so often that it seems meaningless, ordinary, or not sincere, right? Something that is a cliche. For example, plot of Bollywood movies, always a boy meet girl scenario. So such scenarios are hackneyed, right? You have seen them, heard them, and talked about them meaninglessly, right? So it's not sincere. Okay. Next is gloom. Gloom means feeling of great unhappiness and loss of hope, right? If you are filled with gloom, that means you're filled with unhappiness and you've lost all hope, right? So there is a widespread gloom and doom. That means there is a widespread loss of hope news and the news about destruction of the company's future. So that is gloom. Germane means having relevance to a given matter, pertinent or significant, right? So if something is having relevance to a certain matter, some certain detail, certain prospect, that thing would be called as germane to that discussion, germane to that situation, right? Having relevance to a given matter, that means you are germane to that matter, right? For example, if someone gave certain remarks and those remarks were germane to the discussion, that means those remarks had relevance to the discussion, they were pertinent to that discussion, right? So germane is having relevance. Gawky, a tall, awkward person or a clumsy person or a person who's not graceful is gawky, right? He has also been described as gawky or, she considers herself to be gawky and uncool. That means she considers herself to be not graceful, right? She's very ungraceful or clumsy. So gawky is someone who is not graceful or is clumsy. Galvanize, to cause someone to take an action suddenly, right? By exciting them. That means pushing someone to take an action by actually asking them or showing them some situation which makes them take a step. So galvanize, for example, how can we galvanize students into studying hard? Means how can we make the students take an action towards hard studies, right? Towards studying more, or towards studying well, or towards studying with more focus, right? So galvanize someone, cause someone to take an action. Frugality is being careful with using money or food. If you are frugal, that means you are careful while you use money or food. You think about it, right? You plan it. Someone who's a miser is, always worried about spending money. They don't want to spend money, right? So frugality is good. She was, she was frugal. That means she was taught frugality for food and clothing. That means she was told that you should always be careful while putting money for food and clothing. So that is frugality. Frivolous is a person who behaves in a silly way and does not take anything seriously. If you're a person who, is never taking things seriously, that means you are frivolous. You are always behaving in a silly manner, funny manner, ha 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 kinds, right? So you are frivolous. He's seen as a frivolous young man, or I feel like doing something completely frivolous. That means I feel like doing something completely silly, something that does not make sense, right? And something that's not serious. Fringe, fringe, first meaning it is not a part of the mainstream. That means if something is located on fringes of the city, that means that thing is located not in the mainland of the city. It is outside the city and on the outskirts of the city, right? Not in the mainland. If something is a fringe, that means it is not a part of the main company or main business. It is other than the main business, right? So it's not mainstream. Also unconventional, that means it's not, fringe means something that is not heard too much, not discussed too much, not happening too much. So if climate change is no longer a fringe, that means climate change is conventional. People know about it, right? People talk about it. Also, as you can see here, fringe is a hairstyle, right? These front small hair on the forehead, that's fringe. Fractious is someone who easily gets upset or annoyed and is often complaining, or you can also say difficult to control, like kids. When kids are tired, they are fractious. That means they are very annoyed, they are always complaining when they're tired, and they are difficult to control. So fractious. Fortuitous means something that is happening by chance. It's not planned, but it occurs to your advantage. For example, the collapse of its rivals was a fortuitous opportunity. That means those people, their rivals, they collapsed, they were destroyed, the company they were owning, it was no more, right? It saw a downfall. And this collapse of the rivals was a fortuitous opportunity for them, an advantageous opportunity which happened by chance, right? So that is fortuitous. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining. I will see you soon.